I'm Wright from the Seattle Seahawks, and you are watching NorbCam.
This is Walter Jones, Pro Football Hall of Famer, Top 100.
Tyler Lockett from the Seattle Seahawks.
DK Metcalf from
Dave Burleson. You're watching NorbCam.
NorbCam. You're watching NorbCam.
What's up, everybody? This is NorbCam coming at you with another Bleacher Report live stream. Sorry for the late start. Had some technical difficulties getting this rolling, but we are off and doing it here for the next half an hour, talking about the Seahawks 2024 draft. And will they take it 16 or possibly drop back, trade back, try to get more picks and see about trying to get in that second round and maybe still trying to get some gold in the later rounds. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. If you want to join the chat, you definitely can here on Bleacher Report. You can also follow me on my social media channels at NorbCam on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, X, and on Facebook as well. So I'm happy to have you guys on here. It's going to be an interesting draft for sure here in 2024 as we see what all 32 teams have in mind, particularly with the Seahawks. This being the first year under a new head coach, Mike Macdonald, and John Schneider, general manager, really kind of picking on his own where he's got total control over personnel. Obviously, we'll get input from his coaching staff, but really his first time on his own without Pete Carroll at his side. So it's going to be interesting to see what direction he goes here. And I think, and a comment here from Andre is Eisen. NorbCam Bleacher Report. Let's go. Glad you're joining here, man. I want to hear you guys' thoughts on what the Seahawks should do at 16. I got my own thoughts about this. The first question before we talk about who they might trade back with, what trading partners might they be connected to, is first, would they drop back? Would they trade back? And it really depends on what the Seahawks philosophy is this year, not just with the talent on the board, but I think it starts with, do the Seahawks really think or really plan on being a winning team this year, right? I mean, I think every team, every coach, every manager is going to say, yeah, we're going for it this year. This is an all-win situation. But clearly, some teams are in more of a win-now situation. For example, like the 49ers, right? They're in a definitely got to win now because that window of theirs that has been this stellar stud all-star type roster that window is starting to come to its close, and so they gotta make it happen. Whereas the Seahawks are kind of in that mode where, really the last couple of years could be looked at as sort of a rebuild mode since Russell Wilson left the team. We had that bonus year with Geno Smith making the playoffs, and that was like a playoff run in a year that should have been a rebuild. So yes, last year felt like it was the true start of the rebuild, but now it's like here we are, new coach, and so many needs for the Seahawks, but this draft in particular is really strong with particularly offensive players, quarterback, wide receiver, and on the offensive line, which we need not so much on receiver, but quarterback, do we have the quarterback of the future? We've got on the roster, we have Geno Smith, who's really got like 1 year left on his short deal, and then Sam Howell, who they picked up in the offseason, extended to a several-year contract, which of course can be as long or short as they want. But Sam Howell, really taking that backup role. So they don't really have the quarterback of the future, and they had that chance to do it here with so many great quarterbacks, and they could get one at 16. The top 3, 4 are going to be probably gone before they get to it, but we're talking about, I've been entertaining that idea of Michael Penix. He's definitely floating out there. Bo Nix is another option. He came in with a visit for the Seahawks, and there was a report out there that former quarterback Joey Harrington comparing Bo Nix to like the Russell Wilson type, gritty, scrambly, probably going to be in the later rounds, third possibly. But Michael Penix is an interesting one because he's kind of all over the board. I've seen there was Colin Cowherd had him like the Seahawks trading up to get him ahead of 16. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? And then there's another mock draft where I saw Michael Penix not dropping to the 3rd round at 76, getting picked up by the Broncos. So the range is everywhere. So to me, that opens up that question is, A, do they want to win this year? Or B, how highly do they value getting that future quarterback in this draft? And then C, if you do want to go with the quarterback, then you're going to have to sacrifice one of these, franchise changing players, on the offensive line, defensive line, or edge rusher that they could get at 16. They could take Penix there, or they could drop back a little bit and work with one of these other teams and possibly have a little bit of both worlds. They just wouldn't get the ideal talent at 16. It's going to be fun to see where they go with this. More comments. We got Hugh Flame, trade back and hope that Fatanu is there with the draft back picks. Take the best linebacker available. Fatanu, I've definitely had him as a potential player that they could take at 16. Would not be upset at that. Would definitely beef up an area on the offensive line that we desperately need. But again, you do that, and can you still do that? And then without a second round pick, are you pretty much kissing your potential franchise quarterback of the future goodbye, if that is indeed what they want to get this year? It's a tough one. Andre, Salamat Po. Hey, you're welcome. Go Hawks, baby. Love the content, Norb. Thank you very much. Those are the questions that we won't know until draft day, of course, when all these questions, in just a couple more weeks. Is it 3 weeks from now? It's coming up quick. It's going to be so much fun, draft night. So let's just, for the sake of argument for this live stream, we're talking about if the Seahawks don't pick at 16, who they might trade with that could open up some good potential opportunities. So the rumor has it that the Eagles and the Packers and the Commanders have all inquired with trading up with the Seahawks. The Eagles have the 22nd pick, so that would just move them back 6 spots in the first round. So I could still get good talent there, and then potentially open up getting a later round pick to add to their options down the line, which they have 7 picks this year. So you always want to get a few more in your bag. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we'd love to get closer to 10 via trades. So the Eagles is one option. They definitely have some needs. The Eagles lost Hassan Reddick, so they lost some pass rush there. They also had Jason Kelsey retire this year, so they got offensive line needs. They also need a cornerback as well. So I did a mock where with the Eagles, we were able to trade our 16 and our 102 pick and get the Eagles 22nd and their 50th. That would give us a late first rounder and a mid to late second round pick as well. So that kind of fills in that hole that we don't have right now in the second round. And at 22, I still feel like you can get some pretty good talent. You won't get that top tier talent, but that definitely gives you the option where you could get good talent. And depending on the feel of whether a Penix or a Bo Nix, I feel like one of those guys will still be available in the second round. Will they be available at 50? I mean, how great would that be to be able to address one of your line needs at 22? And then at 50, they could still get a Bo Nix or a Penix. I mean, that would be pretty awesome. So we'll see if that trade possibility looks really appealing. Now with the Packers trading at 25, so that would move them up a little bit further back in the draft in the first round. And the Packers have motivation to move up too, because, they're in need of a safety. They re-signed McKinney in free agency, but they still need that other safety back there. They also have need at linebacker. So I think safety and corner, definitely there's a lot of great players here early in the draft. Linebacker, not exactly the best draft for linebackers. So I could see Green Bay, potentially trading up to get higher quality talent in the first round earlier than when they're picking at 25. They move them up 9 spots. And so at 16, that would give them the opportunity to get some players. If they're looking for corner, they could get Kool-Aid McKinstry, Nate Wiggins from Clemson, maybe Terry and Arnold, depending on how they drop in the first 12 to 15 spots. So I feel like the Packers also could be one of those partners that would open up some opportunities for Seattle as well to look to trade. The other team I mentioned, the Commanders. Now the Commanders are trading at 2, so clearly they're going to have their pick of the litter at quarterback. Most likely right now, it looks like Caleb Williams is going to the Bears at number 1 and number 2. Drake May seems to be the primary likely candidate that the Commanders will pick at 2. And then they don't pick again till 36. So they're well into the second round for the next pick. So, and then they pick again at 40. So the Commanders could theoretically go, well, let's trade up with Seattle at 16 because they've got another, second round pick that they could play with. So that would give us some flexibility to gain a second round pick and then something else down the line as well. So, and the fact that they pick again at 40, it's not too far. They can negotiate something there where they would be able to get a pretty decent spot early in the second round, and giving up the 16. But then that drops you out of the first round. So, it would definitely be a lot to give up, saying goodbye to a lot of key players in the first. But then if they do want to get that quarterback, and that puts them in a spot where they could definitely get one and then have some more picks down the line. So that definitely is another option. Let me see. I have more comments here. Tempest Fujit 7754 says trade back and get a second and a fifth to a quarterback hungry team. Yeah, that's definitely an option. I think we all agree that we want Seattle to be picking in the second because you can get a lot of good talent in the second round, and not lose as much dropping out of the first round. There's still a lot of great talent. You start getting to third and fourth and you miss that second round. There's so many good players that are still in that kind of, starting caliber players that you start getting to third and fourth, unless you can work some magic. You can still definitely get some great value in the second, giving up that first. Cracking it open, trade back and add a second round pick. That's what I'm talking about. O-line and defensive line with both of the top 2 picks. And see, and I totally agree with you. And the last couple of mock drafts that I've done publicly, we did one option where we kind of worked Michael Penix into it. There's also another option where, you'd strictly go just fill every position of need that you have to, and you roll with Geno and you deal with the quarterback situation later. It may not be Geno for the future. Sam Howell, maybe there's that outside shot that's Howell could become the QB of the future. Maybe with the right development, maybe this guy is a diamond in the rough and they're just not really saying it because they want to keep teams guessing. Sam Howell's an interesting one. We played them last year, beat Washington barely by a field goal late in the game. Howell had a lot of picks, a lot of touchdowns, a lot of yards. But then again, he wasn't playing under the best of circumstances. Most like chucking the ball 40 to 50 times a game, which you throw it that much, you're going to get picked off more often than not. So Howell is hard to read because I don't think he was in the best situation. But if I were a betting man, if I had to choose, is Sam Howell your future quarterback, or would you rather go with one of these guys who's in the draft now? And I'm really tempted. I haven't really. There haven't been a lot of years recently where I've felt like we need to get a quarterback. This is one of the few years I've actually said that we really should draft a quarterback this year because there's a couple of options that will be available to us. Definitely, we could get them in the first round, but I think you can get some of these guys. As I mentioned, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, I think Nix is a common thread in all this, would definitely be an option, I think, in the second round. Unless some team panics and decides to really move up and get these guys in the first round, I'd be surprised if one or the other isn't available, or both, in the second round. So I still think Seattle can kind of have their cake and eat it too. But you're going to have to give up something. You're going to have to give up that opportunity to get that really generational offensive, line guy, defensive line guy in the first round, which of course we've had that need for a long time. So it's a tough one. Tempest Fujit7754 back in there. Spencer Rattler in the second round. Third, not bad either. Spencer Rattler. I haven't done a whole lot of looking at this guy. I guess he hasn't been on my personal radar. But I have seen his name kicked around. I guess for me, I would take a Nix or a Penix before I'd go with Rattler. If in the second I'm drafting either three, if those three guys are there, Rattler would be my third choice, if any. Dylan Cooper, 24, with John Schneider having full control of player personnel, is there a chance that we trade up? We're so thin, and I just don't see that being the case. We already don't have a second round pick. We only have 7 in this draft as it stands right now. Picking in the first, in the third, we got a couple in the fourth, and then we get into later rounds. So the idea of moving up, we'd have to give up our 16 and something else. I mean, that's unless they really like a guy ahead of 16. It's hard for me to wrap my head around that, but who would that be? Is there an offensive tackle in there that they definitely want to get that's in the higher realms? Like, who would be worth trading up from 16? I don't think you got to do that for quarterback. And offensive tackle, offensive guard, or a guy who could play both, defensive line, or an edge rusher. There's going to be a lot of good edge rushers available at 16, I think, that you don't have to trade up and, go up to the kitchen sink to do that. So many needs. VA Hawks fan says, I like Troy. Who are we talking about? Troy. Which Troy? What Troy are we talking? Oh, Troy Fautanu. Yeah, I like him too. I've had him on multiple lists. I would not complain if the Seahawks went with Troy Fautanu on the offensive line. I've been watching. I'm a Husky. Watching the Huskies obviously last year was a great season to watch, and this guy's lights out, and it was great watching Penix just back there with time to cook steaks back there sometimes, except for the national championship game. But in most of the games, he had plenty of time to throw the ball downfield, as we know. That's going to be the key. And I guess, going back to that whole question, are they in a win now mode versus win now later? And you can be in win now, but maybe it's not like win Super Bowl now. Maybe like be competitive now and really go for it next year, because I think it's going to be hard to have like the ultimate O-line protection and get the quarterback of the future all in one draft. You get that by going like 2-15 or 3-14, right? Like the Commanders, they're in that position, the Chicago's of the world, and now, the Patriots. We haven't had a season like that where we've, moved our draft up, with the exception of last year, thanks to the Broncos giving us theirs. So, which we, went corner on that one. So anyway, it's possible that maybe they go, let's get the quarterback this year. We'll get what we can, knowing that we might get that really, really great offensive line stud next year to protect Penix when we think he'll actually play. Because I think if they do draft a Nix or a Penix, I feel like what they'll do is they'll sit him this year. They'll let Geno play it out. And, whether, Howell, whether they keep 3 quarterbacks or whatever, but, that this becomes like their redshirt year. And they basically make it work. And maybe at this point, they know that the line's not going to be in tip-top shape, but they sit them so that Penix or Nix doesn't really get banged up yet this year. We see how far we can take it. And then the following year, then they really shore up the offensive line, really get them some protection. And then they make their debut as the Seahawks starter. And I can see that playing out. So we're like in a sort of win now, be pretty good now this year, but really go for it next year, if they believe this is the quarterback of the future. And in this draft, VA Hawks fan says, O-line. OL. Dylan Cooper, I wouldn't think we trade up. I'm in agreement with Dylan. Ray 3, Sam Howell definitely isn't out of the cards. He's in a better situation now, so who knows? Agree. He's got better receivers now. When he was with the Commanders, all he had was what's his name? Dude was a stud. Name's blanking. It's my old age or something. But you know what I'm talking about. Dang it. can't think of it right now, but their receiver, the stud. But really, that's all he had to throw to. But here he's going to have multiple weapons. There's going to be Lockett there. There's going to be JSN. There's going to be DK. Tight ends. I mean, running backs. I feel good about our offense. The offensive line interior is only a big question mark in the guard situation, but they've been addressing it. They just haven't addressed it with like cream of the crop guys. They've gotten some veteran dudes. They'll draft some mid, assuming, unless they change their approach. They might go all in, but if they don't go all in the first round, then they'll go with like the mid-rounder guys, see how they do. But I still feel like the Seattle offense is going to be pretty good. It's going to be like it was last year. And if our defense could just get from bottom basement to like average to above average this year, we will be competitive. Maybe not Super Bowl caliber yet, but they will be definitely better than last year. And we only missed the playoffs by one game. So they're in a good spot. I just feel like the home run swing is going to be for next year. Let's see. Brock Bowers. We had 3 tight ends last year, lost 2 of them, kept Noah Fant. And we have yet to have what so many of these great teams have had, that tight end that's like a game changing, that guy, the guy that when all's falling apart, you can always rely on that tight end to be there for you. That's something that, the Kelceys of the world and the Gronks, that guy that, oh God, that guy, how is he always open? Love to get that sort of dynamic with our quarterback. We just haven't had that in so many years. I can't remember the last time where you had that, that 1-2 connection with the tight end. Brock Bowers would be potentially one of those guys that could do it. Would it be worth putting him above some of our other needs to, again, get a game-changing, franchise-altering position player that's going to be lights out, such an upgrade over what we have? Noah Fant's good. And maybe the fact that we had too many tight ends, all kind of vying for the same spot was a little bit where he didn't get to do as much as, he could. I feel like you got to have at least 2 solid tight ends. 3 is nice if you can get those 3 tight end sets every once in a while. But Noah Fant is good, but Brock Bowers could be great. Again, but which is more important, right? Where do they position these things? When you love to be a fly on the wall and be able to look at the draft board and just see, wow, they really put that's really their top guy right there. Or we'd be like, that's kind of what I had. You'd love to know what it is. And we'll kind of know when the draft day comes. But even then, by the time they pick, we don't know what was on that board before that player was taken off. So, but yeah, Brock Bowers definitely one would love to get. But you get him, you're sacrificing something else, right? And it just really comes back to, do they want to get a quarterback in this draft that they feel is that next level guy? Or do they just go like hardcore trenches, make this line as great as it can be, get the defense shored up, get some pass rush in there, leave the offense to be, and just go, we're confident in Geno and Howell, and that's kind of our guys. That could be the case too. So, we'll see. Barry Carlson says D-line, O-line, tight end, O-line in that order. Wow, that's very specific. I don't argue with you there. I might put O-line above 2 D linemen in a row. And I don't know if you're talking D tackle or edge rusher in that D line conversation. I would like to think you're probably talking edge, D tackle, O line. I might go O line, edge, D tackle, tight end. If I'm going to go invest in the trenches, I'm with you there. I would just flop the O line in the 3rd spot and move that either to 1 or 2. And then that first D lineman would be an edge rusher, in my opinion. But yeah, it's interesting. No linebackers. We have made some pretty good moves on linebacker. I do feel pretty good that they, was a little freaked out when, Jordan Brooks and Bobby Wagner left and we had nothing. And then Patrick Queen didn't come here. I was like, whoa, man, what happened to the influx of all these former Ravens players that we thought were going to come follow Michael McDonald to the Seahawks, and that didn't happen. We're like, I thought we were going to get like all these guys just parading through saying, hey, coach, I'm here, sign me up. And that didn't really happen. So I'm glad they did make their moves, from the Dolphins and from the Bills. Those two players are going to be good, I think, but they still need some depth in that position as well. Brian Bruce says, Schneider's repeatedly said over the years that he regrets not drafting QB over the years. Now that Pete's gone, does he finally get that control to draft QBs at will? Well, and like I said, I hadn't really thought about doing it, and we do know that the Seahawks could have drafted some players. And, if you could rewrite history knowing where we are now, obviously there was that time when they were looking at other players and considering, that they could trade Russell Wilson, and they obviously knew something we didn't know a few years back when most of us were all like, what are you talking about? They're not going to trade Russell Wilson. But now that Pete's not here, I do think this year would make the most sense. That if you're going to go for it, this would be a great year to do it. Not just because of the fact that Pete's not here, but also because of the talent that is there. There's a lot of great quarterbacks, as we talked early in this live stream. So, yeah, I do still think there's a chance that they could sacrifice a little bit of that upper level quality to get the quarterback, and then still get good later round qualities in the second and third rounds. So, yeah, I do think this could be that year that they would draft a quarterback. So curious to see if they do that. VA Hawks fan, I wonder if Troy would be there still if we trade back to the mid-20s. I don't know. I think if you trade back, I think you're probably saying goodbye to Troy Fautanu if you're dropping back to the mid-20s. Maybe, again, if you do the trade with the Eagles at 22, he might still be there. Maybe if the Dolphins at 21 were to trade up to move up 5 spots for a guy that they really, really want to get, I don't think he's going to last past 22. Fautanu. I think he's going to be that highly sought after. And again, this is a draft great for offensive line, quarterback, wide receiver. I just don't think it'll be there. So that's the tough part, right? It's like, do you go for the glitzy quarterback position, or do you invest in the trenches where we really know that that's the stuff that you want things to really anchor things down for years and years and years to come, regardless who's back there slinging the rock. You can rationalize almost any move, but man, there's just, when it comes to quarterback, right? You never know. There's some guys, obviously, they take them first round, and you never know what their first year is going to be like. It could be total disaster like last year was. But, what if there's that Patrick Mahomes sitting out there that you look back and go, man, we could have had him. Look how good he is. How did we not take him? We could have had him in the second round and we let him go. You just never know. That's where you wish you had a crystal ball and could see into the future and then fly back into DeLorean and whisper into John Schneider's ear, oh man, you really should get Michael Penix right now. He's going to be awesome. Terry McLaurin, thank you. Ray, when I was trying to have the brain fart of which Commander's receiver it was. Big Boy Benson says, Thalys Fuaga. Yeah. As I said, no shortage of great guys, but he's going to go early, I think. You talk about Troy Fautanu. Fuaga might be even ahead of him. Some drafts have him in the top 10, whereas Fautanu is probably top 15. So again, great offensive line guys in this draft. It's just a question of, how much you really give up to get that guy, Ray 3, I think Fant can be more of that guy with Grubb calling the plays now. That's a good point, Ray. That we haven't discussed really. It's not just the fact that we have a new head coach, but we have a new offensive coordinator. Everything about the Seahawks that we're going to see this year is going to be so different. Now, I don't know how much they're going to completely throw out the old playbook. And it's like, you remember what you guys ran all last year? that's all out the door. We're coming in. This is a whole new system. And, watching Ryan Grubb in much more detail last year following the Huskies, just the play designs and the pre-snap motion that they incorporated. They had more pre-snap motion than I think I've seen, more than any team I've seen in a long time. I mean, they would sometimes have up to like 4 or 5 line shifts and motions and tight ends flipping sides and running backs going out, coming back in, running back in motion from the split from the split. I mean, it was dizzying seeing all this. Now, probably not realistic to do in a pro style offense where you're not lining up every time in no huddle and then getting the line from having 30 seconds to do all this shifting. Probably have to be condensed a little bit, but nonetheless, to go from what the Seahawks offense has been so widely accused of being, which is they're dull, they're boring, they're like 80s, 90s style, old school offense, not creative at all. I mean, I think this is going to be a complete flip. And whether you blame the coordinator or blame Pete Carroll, that Pete Carroll never let the coordinators do what they wanted to do, well, that's gone now. Pete Carroll's gone. The old coordinator's gone. There's no reason that this offense shouldn't look very different from what it has been over the years. Now, I don't know how much time the veterans are going to have to adjust to it. Again, how much are they going to throw the old book out and go with the new one? But these guys are smart, right? I'm excited with what they can do with opening things up and really kind of confusing the defense to where Geno, Howell, Penix at some point, if they do go that way, will have so many more options available and maximizing the talents that we have on this team. That part I'm really, really excited for. VA Hawks fan. I remember JS was, John Schneider was high on Mahomes. Talk about regret. Yeah, right. I mean, back then, who knew? Who knew he was going to be what he became? And, it wasn't like he was the number one pick. I mean, teams had options. The Seahawks weren't the only ones that passed on him. So, you just never know, right? And who knew that Mr. Irrelevant from a couple of years ago, much as whether you like Brock Purdy or don't believe in him or whatever his shortcomings may be, I mean, the dude has been balling. Now, whether it's because he's just surrounded with such great talent on the 49ers roster, and once that roster starts to change in the next few years, will suddenly Brock Purdy be something more like, oh, okay, so maybe it really was the supporting cast and not him? Or is it going to be really that this guy can be a great quarterback no matter what system and what players he's got? That we're going to sort of find out in a small version of it with Seattle, again, with this change next year with offensive coordinator and a totally different head coach. Cameron Seabrook, Penix or Bo to Seattle, wants to know. Yeah, Penix or Bo Nix to Seattle. I guess he would ask which one would if they were both available. Let's say you're sitting there in the second round. We trade with the Eagles. We get their 22 and we get their what was it? What was the other pick that I said they get? Let's see, what was that second round pick they had? Or was it the command? Maybe it was the Commanders. Either way, if we're sitting at 2 and we've got Penix and Bo Nix sitting there ready to be taken, I'm still going to go Penix, man. I love the idea of his Penix being paired up with his offensive coordinator from college. I mean, that just doesn't happen very often. And just to have those guys in the room together. I mean, talk about hitting their stride as they go. And it's like they're running with this, completely like they didn't lose a step because they're just like reunited from where they started from. I mean, that would be just amazing to have that running start in the room. I mean, the possibilities of just hitting the ground where it's like you don't have to worry about a break-in period would be, it's totally amazing. So let's see. VA Hawks fan says Brian Murphy's stock dropped that considerably. He was in all the mocks to Seattle at first, but lately he's apparently a second rounder. Well, this is another one of the things where if quarterback is not the important, is not the primary concern for what's this here? If this is not the primary concern of getting a quarterback here, I think Byron Murphy would be potentially available in the second round. And if you drop out of the first and trade back, I think you could get Byron Murphy, and that would give you, another top tier guy, a defensive tackle that would be, potentially an option. Now, second might be a stretch. Maybe if they trade back and they're able to stay in the first, like get one of these teams to go later first round, like, again, if they trade with the Eagles and stayed in the first round, or the Packers, it's possible that Murphy might be there. Whereas, I think there was some thinking he was going to go in like the top 15. But it all kind of depends on what moves are made prior to that. But I think he's one of those guys that might be there if you're looking to try to beef up the defensive tackle spot. All right. Going over time here. I'm probably in the last 3-4 minutes, so we'll wrap this up pretty soon here. I did want to, address one more comment. Cameron Seabrook. Personally, I think the best quarterback that would fit our offense is Jaden Daniels. That would be a dangerous offense. Yeah, but Jaden Daniels, I don't think he's going to last that long. Do you? I guess I thought he would. I wasn't considering it because I thought he would be long gone by the time he got to potentially at 16. But I could be wrong. It all depends on what happens with the quarterbacks. If Jaden Daniels goes later, well, then definitely Nix and Penix drop even further down too. So yeah, I guess it depends. If he's still on the board at 16, they could be tempted to do that if that's their guy. I guess I wasn't considering Jaden because I thought he was going to be gone by that point. Cease to amaze. Where can I get that backdrop, that wallpaper, etc.? I actually designed this. It was a combination of a little bit of help of AI and a little bit of Photoshop work creating this backdrop. So it's kind of funny. This lightning bolt shape. Somebody told me, said, the first iteration I had, somebody said, that looks a lot like a person's junk. Pointed out. I was looking at it, I was like, really? And I was like, okay, I guess I can see how the shape kind of looked like what it was. So I had to modify that because I didn't want to, offend anybody. That was shocking. Okay, a couple other points I wanted to bring up. So I mentioned Eagles, Packers, and Commanders being potential trade options. And, the other two teams you might want to consider is the 49ers. They've got other needs of their own, and offensive tackle might be one of those spots that they might want to move in and grab one of these key guys. Obviously, them finishing, losing in the Super Bowl, they're drafting at 31. They might want to move up, 15 spots to grab one of these players. So, that's something that Seattle could consider. Now, of course, they don't really have anything. Let's see, they're drafting at 31, 63, 94. So they don't have a lot to offer in terms of second round options. So it's not exactly, it'd be more for quantity of picks, not really moving up or, dropping to the second round in a really ideal situation. So not my favorite one there, but it's possible that, they could get more quantity if the 49ers were that desperate. One other team to take a look at too is the Bills with with Stephon Diggs leaving the Bills. They're picking at 28. And let's see, they've also got picks at 28 and 60, and 128, 133. So, if they wanted to move up, if they felt like they need to get a wide receiver now that they don't have Diggs anymore, that 28 is a long time to wait for receiver. They could really get some top tier talent if they moved up to 16. So I could see the Bills wanting to move to 16. They give up their 28. And maybe, I don't know if they give their 60, but I would keep Seattle in the later first round, and then they would get more picks later in the draft or future picks. So that's another one to keep your eye on with the Bills having definitely desperate need there at wide receiver. So there you go. Going to wrap things up here for this little peek into the draft. But more videos to come. Let's see, check the chat one more time. Looks like Ray3 says, no matter what we do in terms of trades, I just hope we end up getting a second round at the very least. Well, if that's the case, we are definitely trading back out of the first. That's the only way we're going to do that, obviously. So, and it just depends on which team. Can we stay in the first round and then get a second round pick out of it? I feel like if Schneider has that option, if there's a team that could put us back in the first and still get a second out of that, that would be a win-win. And I think we could still get a lot of the guys that, you know, filling needs that we want, and even potentially getting the quarterback of the future. So we'll see if Schneider can work his John Schneider magic. All right, that's a wrap for this broadcast. I'm glad everything worked out, because for a while I didn't think it was going to happen, but got the technicalities worked out. But again, my name is NorbCam, Norb Kawili. Check me out on my socials here, not just on Bleacher Report. I hope you'll follow me here, but also check out my other content on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, X, and on Facebook if you're on that platform, of any of those platforms. Everything's at NorbCam. But that is it. So thanks a lot again for joining me. I will be back again. I know I'm doing a draft in and around the draft itself on Bleacher Report. I'll be live streaming with other creators on the Bleacher Report platform. But just follow me, and I'll let you know what live streams I have ahead. Appreciate you guys commenting and giving me feedback. It's great stuff. All right. Take care. Until next time, have a great week, and go Hawks.